I was innocent, just like y'all are. I was an innocent man who decided to come to Indiana and make a better living for my family. And it was typical.
That was Keith Cooper speaking to the Notre Dame Law School in 2017. A few months earlier, he became the first and only person in Indiana history to win a pardon from the governor based on actual innocence. Cooper was wrongfully convicted of robbery and attempted murder in 1997 and sentenced to 40 years in prison. He was released after 9 years when the case against him fell apart. Mistakes like Cooper's are more common than you may think. There have been nearly 2,700 wrongful convictions overturned in the last 3 decades. That's an average of 1 every 4 days. Each case is its own tragic story, but the people behind them all have one thing in common. They're being helped by a group of Notre Dame law students who are discovering what it means to be a different kind of lawyer in a surprisingly flawed criminal justice system. I'm Brendan O'Shaughnessy, and you're listening to the Notre Dame Stories 6-part series, Proving Innocence. Tia Paulette was a second-year law student at Notre Dame in 2016. She and a handful of other students decided to reactivate a club that had gone dormant. It was the Innocence Club, and Paulette became its co-founder and first president.
We would just sit down, and we would talk and dream of all of these things in the abstract, and we were really like, okay, so what do we do? How do we go about, just sort of penetrating the law school community with all of this information that just wasn't present at the time, very important information, surrounding just the hardships of the criminal justice field and wrongful convictions as a whole. So we kind of came up with a 3-plan approach. We always called it the 3 A's, and that was first awareness, then advocacy, and then action. So at the outset, we had to choose an advisor, and it was no question. We all agreed that we wanted Professor Gurule. He was just amazing.
Law school faculty member Jimmy Gurule is a former federal and state prosecutor and an expert in criminal law and terrorist financing. He was happy to help.
We didn't have any resources from the previous club. We didn't even really have a constitution or any sort of just layout of what they had previously done or anything. So it was really us it's interesting because it started out as a reactivation, but it really became a founding, just creating something from the ground up that was completely new and became, more widespread than we thought it ever would.
For their first big event, Paulette bought dozens of white roses with her own money and placed them in the law school commons, where students gather and eat. The club made cards containing facts about current wrongful conviction cases.
And just the response that we received, we knew right then and there that, it wasn't necessarily people that care about these issues. It's just that, again, there was no awareness. And so we knew, wow, we kind of had them in the palm of our hands. We kind of had, hit a chord within their heart. We would meet with Professor Gurule every week. And in about February of 2017, he said, there's this case out of Elkhart with this man named Keith Cooper and this attorney, Elliott's Law Firm. It's right next door. So they became pretty much our grand opening, honestly. That particular event, I could never forget it. It was one of the most life-changing experiences I've ever had. It was phenomenal. His story just sort of just had all of our hearts. At the end, there was hardly a dry eye in that room. Here's this man here in the physical form who is just this horrible token of the hardships of the criminal justice field. And I never cease to, not be speechless whenever I just think about what it was like to sit there and listen to him.
The club's leaders went to dinner with Cooper and Slosser at the Morris Inn. Slosser had begun working on exoneration cases when he was still in law school, so he challenged the students to get involved right away.
If you want to free innocent people, use your law school experience to start that now instead of waiting until after you pass the bar. My name is Elliot Slosser. I'm a civil rights lawyer based out of Chicago. I work at the law firm of Lovey and Lovey in the Exoneration Project. I am now an adjunct professor at Notre Dame Law School, and I help Professor Groulet teach the Notre Dame Exoneration and Justice Project.
Paulette and the other club members felt that the opportunity had fallen into their laps.
We ran with it. It seemed like, exactly what we needed. It was informal, but very impactful. These teams of people who would go out, every weekend or every other weekend with Elliot and into the field and be, helping him investigate his cases that he had out of Elkhart County. They were committing endless, countless hours to these cases for no credit at all. They absolutely loved the opportunity and they were willing to give everything that they had. And we felt like we owed it to them to try and get an externship.
Paulette and co-founder Eric Augustin had no idea how to turn the club into a class, but they helped create what the law school calls an externship with the help of Jimmy Gouroulet and Bob Jones, who oversees legal clinics at Notre Dame.
We did a lot of research and we committed just everything we had to it. So once the proposal was done and Professor Gouroulet took it over, did his edits and presented it before the faculty.
Professor Jimmy Gouroulet explains how the project grew.
Initially, it was a student organization that had as its goal educating the public on wrongful convictions and the problem of wrongful convictions in the country. And it evolved from a student organization to a volunteer organization where students were volunteering to work on wrongful conviction cases that were being investigated by the Exoneration Project, headquartered in Chicago. And then from there, it became a course called the Wrongful Conviction Externship, where students were receiving academic credit for their work on these cases.
How serious a problem is wrongful conviction in the U.S. justice system?
I think it's a very serious problem. Historically, since 1989, there are reported approximately 2,700 wrongful conviction cases in this country. And those are only the cases where the court ordered the conviction be overturned based on innocence, that the wrong person or the person was wrongfully convicted of a crime. And I think that's really only the tip of the iceberg, that 2,700 cases, because those are only the cases where there was sufficient evidence to overturn the conviction.
How do you feel about the prevalence of these mistakes and problems?
Well, I'm shocked. I'm actually shocked by it. Before I joined the law faculty at Notre Dame, I worked as a prosecutor, both federal and state, for 9 years. And I am offended by the fact that, well, I guess I'm offended, but also concerned that despite all of the constitutional protections that are afforded individuals that are charged with a crime in our country, the right to a trial, the right to a lawyer, due process, on, that still, despite all of those protections, individuals are wrongfully convicted.
What do you hope that the law students get out of this experience of being in this project, in this class?
Well, a number of things. First, it's going to provide them, and does provide them, an intimate insight into the criminal justice system. Second, it affords them an opportunity to take the learning, the knowledge that they're gaining in law school and apply it in a very impactful way to address and correct the miscarriage of justice
The externship and class were approved just as Paulette graduated in 2018. She's now an assistant attorney general in Illinois, but she remembers how it felt when the exoneration project was approved.
We just sort of just sat down and thought, oh my God, did we really just do that? Did we really just take a club that started out as absolutely nothing, no funding, no awareness, just no infrastructure, and make this an externship? We knew we would never really be able to participate in, but it really wasn't about us. It was about, it was about the overall cause and people like Keith Cooper, and Andy Warrior, who was one of the first cases that the students worked on. The Exoneration Project, I believe, just made me the prosecutor that I became, one who was compassionate about, both ends of the criminal justice system, and one who really, I felt that it was my job and my duty as a prosecutor with the utmost power in the criminal justice system, with all of the discretion and the person who made all the calls to ensure that I did right by every single defendant that I came across.
Notre Dame law students participate in every aspect of our post-conviction litigation. So when you think of this project, oftentimes people only learn about what we're doing when we file a petition or when somebody is released. And what they don't see, are the years of hard work that goes into what's on paper and what's later proven at an evidentiary hearing. And so students, participate in investigation. They go talk to witnesses. They go talk to alternate suspects. They go meet with our clients. They do legal research. They draft petitions. They do everything that a lawyer would do under our supervision. In terms of what practical experience they get in this project, I think it's really unrivaled. I'm not sure that there, are many opportunities in law school for people to go into a prison and meet with somebody who's wrongfully been there for 20 years, or talk to a witness about the types of coercive methods that police officers use to get a false statement. It really is, involvement from the students from the beginning through the end in ways that I think law schools typically can't provide those experiences. This isn't a mock trial, it's somebody's life. And if we lose, our clients could die in prison.
In August, the externship transformed into a legal clinic. This means that it has more resources and functions as a standalone law firm that can represent clients.
At this point in our clinic, we have 8 different wrongful conviction cases in Elkhart. Some of those cases involve co-defendants. And in one of those cases, one of the co-defendants is actually represented by the Innocence Project in New York.
Gurule says the new clinic's work fits perfectly with Notre Dame's mission.
And so that term, different kind of lawyer, really speaks to the values of Notre Dame Law School. And the different kind of lawyer is not simply a lawyer that's looking to get a job and make money and live a wealthy or successful life, but instead a lawyer that is willing to take that knowledge and education and use it for the broader public good to make our society a better society, to address social justice, correct social justice issues and problems in our country. And the work that the students are engaged in the Exoneration Justice Project are doing exactly that.
Which brings us back to Keith Cooper, who moved from Chicago to Indiana to build a better life. His story started with an everyday task, buying cereal to eat with his kids over Saturday morning cartoons. And then everything changed.
She said, that's him. I said, no, let me get out the car. I'm not the man that robbed her.
Next time on Proving Innocence, we take you inside the case of Keith Cooper, charged with a robbery he didn't commit in a town he barely knew.
And I didn't know they was coming for me. I never suspect that they was coming for me, because I'm just an innocent man coming from the store. And when they jumped out the car and put the guns to my head and threw me on the ground, and from that, my life was living hell.